Found this little man on a child's grave. It's a lovely gesture, but, you know, when it rains, they tend to get wrecked, which is why I brought this one in. Also, if you're really unlucky,
Where am I? Put me down!
they get possessed. There's nowhere for the soul to. You put it on a grave, soul just goes straight up like a vacuum cleaner.
I'll rip out your soul!
Yeah. Worst thing about a possessed toy, I'm stuck with it now. I can't do anything with it. It might start killing people, might not start killing people. If I throw it away, it's going to come back. If I chop it up into little bits, it's going to come back. Watch! Watch!
Stop it! Watch where you're putting that hand! I'll have you!
See? Like clockwork. Well, I might as well come up with a name for it now. This thing's going to be there for the rest of my life.
Nobody's watching this.
Shut up. I'm trying to... Right.
Stop it!
Osgood Perkins the Monkey. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. The Stephen King adaptation before this. Anyway, to understand The Monkey, you need to kind of understand two things. One is that it's a short story by Stephen King. And when you go to see it, you kind of get the feeling that it's a bit of a throwaway story. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad story. It just means it feels like one of Stephen King's kind of passing thoughts, more than something he's dedicated a lot of time to. And the other thing you have to understand is the background of the director. Osgood Perkins is the son of the late Anthony Perkins, who we all know as Norman Bates in the Psycho series. And he lost his father at a young age due to an illness. That's mostly public knowledge. What you might not know, however, is that he also lost his mum during the 9/11 attacks. His mum was actually on one of the planes, which is something I can't even comprehend, really. That's a massive event. So when it comes to directing The Monkey, which is a film about a possessed toy monkey that, if it is in your possession, your friends and relatives just sort of randomly die in completely obscure and sometimes ridiculous scenarios, you can kind of see the appeal to that director with this material. What I didn't see coming, really, is how much of a joke the film makes of the whole thing. And again, I sort of understand it. You know, if you spend most of your life discussing the deaths of your parents and how sort of out of the blue, and in one case just ridiculously extreme that can be, I could see how after a while you'd have to develop a sense of humor to that. So when making this film, Perkins really leans into the kind of the sense of humor on it. People are getting speared through the guts and cannonballs to the head and all sorts of nonsense. Just electrocuted and exploded. It's kind of like watching a Final Destination movie, except for, to be honest, it actually looks better than a lot of the Final Destination movies, but it doesn't have the drawn-out suspense that those movies do. Eventually, those films just became rolling scenes of kind of Rube Goldberg-esque machinations where things would fall onto other things and knock other things over, and then somebody gets an axe through their face. The Monkey has those elements, but it doesn't turn its film into a strung-out series of those elements. However, it is fair to say almost everybody on screen at some point is going to die in an extravagant and bloody way. Because it's a Stephen King story, you have to go through the lifetimes of these characters. You get introduced to two twin brothers that come across a possessed toy that their father kind of left when he ran out of the house. And when they wind that toy up, somebody dies. That's kind of the general idea behind the film. You follow those kids for about half of the running time, and then you transition to them as adults. The transition can be, because it comes so late in the game, it can be a little bit jarring, because you spend so much time kind of dedicated to these kids and their plight that by the time it changes to the adults, you're kind of having to get used to them all over again. One of my favorite characters in the entire film was played by Elijah Wood, who seems to have gotten the camp nature of the film absolutely spot on. That's not to say that everybody else didn't, but Elijah Wood really kind of leans into how goofy the premise becomes. And ultimately, it is a fun premise. The idea of some cymbal clashing monkey is responsible. Well, actually, in the book, it's a cymbal clashing monkey. In the film, it's a monkey that plays the drums. And apparently, the reason for that change is because the Disney studios put the cymbal clashing monkey in Toy Story 3, and they made it terrifying in that, if you remember Toy Story 3. And it turns out the only thing more terrifying than a possessed killer toy is going up against the Disney lawyers. So they completely bypass that, change the cymbals to the drums. Doesn't really make any difference, to be honest. The design of the toy is really cool. I would be shocked if there weren't figures of it out in the next year or so, an actual life-sized, possessed version, or maybe not possessed, not like this, version of the monkey. I wouldn't be surprised if that was in stores in the future. It does look good. And they do utilize it in a number of ways. They shoot it from some very interesting angles. And at one point, there's a strip show with a possessed toy monkey. So if that's your thing, that's in there. It's a bloody film. It's a gory film. But it's a silly film. And it would be daft to say that the film gets silly because it basically starts off silly. It's not a deep film. There are messages in there. The toy itself kind of represents absentee parents and absent fathers specifically. They do make a good point of reason as to why parents are constantly missing in the kids' lives within that film, because they have a killer monkey and they don't want their kids to be killed by that killer monkey. But as much as, like I say, the director's obviously got some experience with that, the film is so focused on doing big daft splatter gags that any real commentary in there it doesn't get lost, but it feels like it's just kind of getting name checked along the way as opposed to being the real dramatic focus of things. The focus is definitely the big silly set pieces. I would avoid the trailer. The trailer gives away most of those, and if you've seen the trailer, a big part of the fun of the movie has basically been taken away from you.
You have no friends.
Maybe if I threw it to the bottom of the ocean? No, just come back. Cut off all its limbs and put them in separate boxes? Bury them around the graveyard? No, just come back. Set fire. No, just come back. Shit.